What up? Marsh Pod. We are recording this on a Sunday night. We are going to talk a little bit of All-Star Game as we are recording this just after Team Shaq OGs took down the Rising Stars. We're going to talk a little bit of what we saw through the first two games, which I was skeptical about. We're also going to talk a little Warriors minute. Beg your pardon if we get a little homer action for you, but been obviously paying very close attention to them prior to the All-Star break, so I want to talk that. But first, a quick PSA. We're going to bring back the Marsh mailbag. We had this, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe, where we had the Marsh mailbag rolling. We're bringing it back, and it doesn't have to be, it's questions for quite literally anything. Hoops, or otherwise, all levels of hoops, feel free to drop it in. So to do it, we got an email address for this one, not a Google Doc or a Google form. So marsh@simworldsports.com. I'll put that on the screen. Send in your questions. What do you got? What are you feeling? What are you curious about? And like I said, it could be hoops. It can be otherwise. It could be life. Who cares? Who needs my advice? Who needs my questions? We're going to find out. But send them on in, and we will dive into that. Depending on the number of submissions, I'd like to do one a day, one a Monday, obviously, if not a couple if we have them. So that's where we're going. But I want to start with Golden State because I've been paying much closer attention to Golden State over the past 2 weeks, 10 days since the trade deadline. And this is a team that Draymond Green before the All-Star game comes out and says he thinks they can win a championship. Now, look, I don't know if they can win a championship, but I don't think that it's unquestionable. Okay, I've had a long-held belief of how to win a championship. You need two things. You need two really good players at the top of your roster, and two, you need really good depth to win it. And if you look back at the last handful of champions, it tracks with that record. The reason Golden State, if you go back to Toronto when the Raptors won it in 2019, yes, the injuries to Kevin Durant and then eventually Klay Thompson hurt this team, but the depth for the Raptors was so far superior to what Golden State had, and the injuries ended up costing them that championship. But if you look at the last number of champions, you have a bona fide all-SWBA piece at the top, and then the rest of the roster is filled out with really good reliable guys who can have big nights on occasion, but for the most part just fit in their role and do an exceptional job of that. And so if you look at it, now the first piece of it is the most important piece, is having a really good number one and a really good number two. So if you look at the teams in the SWBA and their standings, I think that you get a pretty good idea of who can and who cannot win the SWBA championship. So before the trade deadline, you didn't have a number two guy in Golden State that was on par with anything that existed elsewhere in the league. Steph Curry was trying to do way too much, and they didn't have a number two guy who could step up and play big minutes, who could make big shots, who could turn the tide of the game when they entered or when they decided to make an impact. They now have that with Jimmy Butler. So let's just go through the Western Conference, and we're going to look at the top two players on every team, or at least who I would say are the top two players on every team. We're going to say, did Golden State match up with that? Because, again, you need two things. You need depth, and you need star power, and star power being the most important. I really like Golden State's depth. Okay, Moses Moody has been really good as of late. I've talked a lot about Quentin Post. I love the game that he brings. The attraction to him right now is his three-point ability. He's got some things that he needs to figure out on defense because he has been really bad, or the team has been bad with him as the primary five. But I also love his passing ability. He's really showcased a really great, honestly, Golden State Warriors type touch, right? It's a quick give and go. It's a dribble handoff into a screen. It's a screen handoff, get back to Steph Curry type of action. He's done an exceptional job of running that. Honestly, he's run that as well as I've seen Kevon Looney run it, who is probably the best center to ever run it. Maybe I shouldn't say best, behind Andrew Bogut. Bogut ran it better. But Quentin Post has done a really good job. You've got Jonathan Kuminga coming back, which is going to be a really interesting bench unit, or really unit in general, when they go with Butler, Kuminga, and Draymond at the 3-4-5 probably, because there's not a lot of shooting there, so it'll be interesting to see how they use him. Buddy Hield is streaky, but he's reliable. And look, Golden State probably doesn't have the best bench in the world. I think that's fair to say. But they've looked better now that Moses Moody has scored in double figures in, I think, 13 of the last 15 or 14 of 16. He's looked really good when he's actually been given hey, we're going to give you 20 minutes a game. Just play basketball. He's looked great in those minutes. So, but the point of this, the stars, let's get to it. Okay, we're going to go through the Western Conference because obviously the Golden State Warriors have to get through that. You have to go through the Western Conference if you're going to make the playoffs. So, the top two guys, does Golden State match up better with the top two guys? Let's start with Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is better than Steph Curry. Let's just put it right there. Shai Gilgeous, SJ is probably going to win the MVP. If not, he's going to be number 2 to Jokic. So, OKC is the leg up as the number 1 guy. But the number 2 dude, I think there's a conversation between Jalen Williams, who is an all-star, who's playing today, and Jimmy Butler. When Jimmy Butler's on, Jimmy Butler's still really freaking good. But we're still going to give this one to Oklahoma City, so Oklahoma City, better basketball team. Number 2 right now is Memphis. Ja Morant's the number 1, probably, but he can't stay healthy. So it's not probably, he's definitely number 1, but he can't stay healthy. So that means your number 2 now is Jaren Jackson Jr., who's also an MVP. In a healthy vacuum, Memphis Grizzlies, I would say, would have a better top 1-2. It's just a matter of, are they going to stay healthy? Memphis has not done that. But, again, we're taking them in a healthy vacuum. Memphis is better. So both those teams better. Denver. This is where I think things get a little interesting because there's only one other team who I think is a bona fide. Their top 2 guys are definitely better than Golden State's top 2 guys, and that's Los Angeles Lakers. Luka Doncic and LeBron James. The depth, though, for the Lakers, I think I would put the Warriors up against. But that means we have 3 teams with a bona fide top 2 players are better than the top 2 players for Golden State. Denver has a very serious chance. Nikola Jokic is definitely better than Steph Curry. But what version of Jamal Murray are we going to get? Are we going to get the 55-point version? Because if we are, then yes, Denver's top 2 is better than Golden State's. But is he going to come back to earth and be the Jamal Murray we've known? I would say no. I think this most recent version is definitely there, which puts Golden State at number 5. I think they have a better top 2 than Houston, a better top 2 than the Clippers, a better top 2 than Minnesota, Dallas, Sacramento, and Phoenix. That's where Golden State sits right now, is the 5th best top 2 duo in the Western Conference. You're going to have to go through 2 of those above them. But the fact that I think there's a very real conversation for some of the other ones, is Jalen Williams better than Jimmy Butler? Is Jaren Jackson Jr. better than Jimmy Butler? Is Jamal Murray better than Jimmy Butler? The fact that that's now a conversation as opposed to the previous point where Golden State was, where it was not a conversation when the number 2 guy was Andrew Wiggins, sometimes Jonathan Kuminga, sometimes Draymond Green. That's what's changed about this team. They have an identity. They have a grit to them. They're getting to the free throw line, which is another reason why this whole crap about the Golden State Warriors not getting free throws, it was never the case. The Warriors' offense doesn't play to get free throws. They don't have guys that attack the rim the way Jimmy Butler does, the way LeBron James, Kevin Durant does. They're a jump shooting team, so they're not going to get free throws. So this whole, it's a side tangent, but the fact that people complained about the Warriors not getting calls, yeah, sure, Steph Curry missed calls. But breaking news, there's missed calls on every freaking play, okay? On every possession, just about. In every game, there's missed calls. It wasn't targeted at the Golden State Warriors, so to speak. It's just their game did not lead to free throw opportunities or forcing fouls to be called. Now it is. Jimmy Butler's got a swagger to him. It's bringing a swagger out on other guys. I think Golden State is a very real contender, but the only way they get to be a contender is they have to get out of the play-in. They can't win this thing if they're in the play-in. They have to find a way to get to 6. They're 3.5 games back, 4 games back in the loss column from the Clippers. They have to get to number 6. It's going to be tough to do it because you've got to jump Minnesota, you got to jump Dallas, you got to jump Sacramento. I think they can do all those things, but I really think just based off the star power at the top of this roster that's suddenly changed with Jimmy Butler, the Golden State Warriors are a dark horse. Are they going to win a championship like Draymond Green said? Heck, I would love that. But they're different, though. They're a different team today than they were pre-trade deadline. And the fact that they gave up just Andrew Wiggins, which is a tough loss, but Jimmy Butler's a better basketball player, and a top 10 protected first-round pick to get there, that's a win for them. And that's a continuation of what I think has been a really good tenure so far from Mike Dunleavy running the show. All right, let's go to All-Star Game. We are, like I said, I'm recording this right before the championship game. And I'll tell you what, I've had an up and down little vibe. Let's start with Draymond Green's comments because he's been talking a lot. He says that the rising stars should not have been able to play. They shouldn't have been given the honor of playing on All-Star Sunday. Well, the fact that they're playing on All-Star Sunday is because you All-Stars have not done a good job of making this game entertaining for the viewing audience. It hasn't been good since the Elon ending was ended or added. The Elam ending, was added to the All-Star game immediately after the death of Kobe Bryant. That's the last time this thing was at all interesting. We're pushing 300 points last season. Now we've actually got guys playing defense. Those first two games, I assumed it would happen, and it did. The beginning of those games were what you'd expect from All-Star basketball. But where did things flip? Jaren Jackson actually tried to play hard in those games. Victor Wembanyama was really playing hard. I thought Trae Young was going all out in that first game. And then you get to the second round, the second game, you have the Rising Stars playing their tails off to try to force the OGs to actually win that game. And the fact that it came down to the ending that it did is a massive win for the SWBA. Because I'll be honest, I was watching that and I was preparing myself to put up an episode that says, I'm not trying to figure out how we fix this, but I don't think there is any fixing it because the effort was so sloppy early on in these games. But fortunately, which is what I was holding out hope for, the end of those All-Star games actually looked like basketball games. You had guys, Jaren Jackson Jr. was guarding full court. Now, look, there was, on that last possession before, I think it was it Darius Garland, I think, might have finished it off. But regardless, you actually had a guy trying to stop the point of attack. It was SGA who finished it. There were guys that could not have cared. Jokic did not care. Karl Anthony Towns did not care. Tyler Hero did not care. Didn't honestly look like he was all there either. You had guys that didn't look like they gave a damn about the game. But then you had guys like SGA, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, I thought was caring. Jaylen Brown got on the floor in that second game and was D'ing up like his life depended on it. Kyrie Irving. The entire Rising Stars roster looked like they cared enough to try to win this basketball game. That's a win for the league. Because what we've been given in the last handful of years is just a terrible product that no one cares about. Now, can we have some complaints about the fact that Mac McClung has won 3 dunk contests in a row and we aren't seeing LeBron James? We never will. We're not seeing Ja Morant. You know, the fact that we've got some of the most athletic guys in the league are choosing not to do it, that's a bummer. But what we had on Sunday and what we continue to have as of this recording is a positive for the league. It's interesting basketball. It's quick. It fits the need of the viewing audience today and the attention spans that we lack of, well, I don't really want to watch 4 quarters, but how about a best of 40? Honestly, I think they could have pulled that down to like a best of 30 and I would have been happy with it. But overall, I think this was a win for the All-Star game and the All-Star game weekend. It was entertaining. Now, do we fix it and maybe do 4 teams? Sure, maybe. Maybe we don't have to have, like 8 guys per roster. You trim that down a little bit. You're only playing at 40 points at the end of the day. But still, it was interesting. It actually resembled basketball. And I don't think anybody's begging this thing to look. There are people begging for it to look competitive. That's not coming back. But if there's glimpses of it for longer stretches, I personally think that's a win. Again, remember, we're opening up the Marsh mailbag again, so marsh@simworldsports.com. Send in your questions, send in your thoughts. We will read them at the end of every show. So give us some content to read. We would appreciate a chance to engage with y'all, and appreciate y'all tuning in. We're back here next Monday, and of course, every day on SimWorld Today.